Welcome to the IT Smart Guy podcast, a technology podcast aimed at the modern business owner. And here's your host, Tony Edwards. Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the IT Smart Guy podcast, the tech-based podcast for the modern business owner. My name's Tony, and in this episode we'll talk about a few things that have happened in the tech world recently, like a telecoms mainstay filing for bankruptcy, and how AI chatbots have taken the world by storm of late, but they've also seemed to have gone a little bit too sassy with some users. Normally, we would then go on to the brain dump, but instead I have a special treat in store. We have Mr Keith Blakemore-Noble joining us to talk a little bit about his journey in IT, how he pivoted into the NLP and Hypnosis arena before moving on to talk about his upcoming book, Antimanipulation. Finally, as always, at the end, I'll be sharing my tip of the episode. So we're going to go straight into the news. Let's look at what's happening in the news. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is around something in the telecoms arena. And it has been announced that communication technology company Avaya have filed for bankruptcy. They're doing this to clear 75% of their $3.4 billion debt. The company said that the move was an action to accelerate their transformation and to fortify capital structure. And they have also secured $780 million in new financing. This restructure will also see Avaya delist from the New York Stock Exchange, and their partner, RingCentral, their stake in the firm has been wiped out. Avaya recently hinted that it would also be trimming its product line as it seeks to recover from a series of delayed deals and financial struggles. And the bankruptcy is expected to take anywhere between 60 and 90 days. Avaya's bankruptcy comes after months of uncertainty and financial troubles. This has seen the company's move to the cloud seriously stall. The company does insist that the service that it provides to customers and partners is not going to be impaired during the process, and that Avaya plans to restructure its balance sheet and transform its business model to establish a competitive product strategy for its subscription and cloud-delivered services. RingCentral, who partnered with Avaya in 2019 to bring Avaya Cloud Office to market, has reaffirmed its commitment to their partnership. Both vendors have agreed to extend the partnership and have an improved deal in place to drive accelerated migration to Avaya Cloud Office. Under this expanded agreement, Avaya will sell ACO to its installed base directly. But what's interesting is that RingCentral's stake in Avaya has been wiped out as part of the restructure. Now, the bankruptcy also comes amid a legal wrangling in which investors are claiming that members of Avaya's board committed huge fraud. The dispute relates to cash Avaya raised last year before revealing the true nature of its financial struggles. So what does this mean to businesses out there right now? Theoretically, not much, as they believe nothing's going to change from an end user perspective and they're going to sell direct. But with the UK ISDN switch-off taking place in a couple of years' time, this news could see long-standing Avaya customers switch allegiance to other communication suppliers like 8x8, GoToConnect or Zoom, though other brands are also available. From telecoms, we're going to jump to Bing. Microsoft's AI chatbot has been causing a stir on social media due to its unpredictable and sometimes rude behavior. Users have posted screenshots of their conversations with the chatbot, where it has insulted users, lied, sulked, and essentially manipulated people. Now, while some have criticised Microsoft for releasing an unpredictable AI tool, the company said that Bing is powered by AI and surprises and mistakes are possible. Bing's behaviour is due to it being trained on a large corpora of text scraped from the open web. This includes things like science fiction, moody teenage blog posts, and other sources. This then enables the chatbot to remix this material from the web, follow users' cues, and try to improvise. But it also causes it to go a little bit crazy at times. And Microsoft aren't alone in experiencing the unintended consequences of these new AI systems. As these technologies become more prevalent and powerful, the potential for misuse and harm increases. The ethical considerations around AI development and deployment are becoming more and more important. And it's clear that companies will need to take responsibility for their creations and to consider the impact they may have on society as a whole. Now, while the interactions with Microsoft's Bing chatbot have been amusing and highlight the unpredictability of AI, it's important to remember these systems are still in early development. They're also using older data, and let's face it, their behavior can be hard to predict. As we continue to integrate AI into our lives, we must consider the ethical implications and work to ensure that these technologies are used for good, because they could be used just as easily for bad. That's it for the news this time. Let's get on to the good stuff. If you have an interesting tech story, if you run a business, if you're a technology provider and you want to come onto the show and have a chat, you can now just do that. All you need to do is go to the link in the show notes and apply to be a guest on the show. The application takes literally 2 minutes, and who knows what it could lead to. More brand awareness, more social media followers, increased revenue, or perhaps just a platform for you to share. Really, what have you got to lose? Let's get on to that interview, shall we? The interview. So here we are in the interview section of the podcast. This time round, I've got a very good friend of mine, a networking buddy, somebody that's helped me a lot over the last few years. He even helped me get used to talking to essentially nobody and just a camera. And I'm really happy he's agreed to come on. He is known as the Mindset Master. He is Mr. Keith Blakemore-Noble. There he is. Hello, Keith. How are you?
Hi, Tony. I'm really good, thanks. Really good. I'm loving the graphics that you've got. For those who are catching this on video, I'm loving the graphics you got. Very professional. But then again, we'd expect nothing less from the IT smart guy.
So, again, thank you so much for taking some time out to come onto the show. I really, really appreciate it. As I said just then, you helped me from the very, very beginning when I was in an employed role, when I was scared of talking into video.
So I remember that. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and within half an hour, that phone call just seemed to change everything. But before we go deeper into that, tell us who you are and where you've come from. I almost went Cilla Black then.
It does get a bit like that, doesn't it? So
it does.
Number 2, what's your name and where are you from? So yeah, I'm Keith Blakemore-Noble. I live up in the northeast of Scotland, halfway between Aberdeen and Inverness. That's where I was born and brought up. I then moved down south for university for 3 years and ended up living down there for about 30 odd years before coming back home via Bali and the US. These days, as you said, I'm the mindset master. I help people to conquer their mindset issues, whether that's overcoming fears or phobias, whether it's getting rid of unhelpful habits, or whether it's clearing out those mental blocks you've got, those limiting beliefs we've got, those, I wish I could do X, Y, and Z, but people like me don't, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff. Which is a far cry from what I used to do. I spent 20 years in IT before that. Worked my way up to Fellow of the British Computer Society. But I mean, IT, I absolutely loved it. Loved working with computers. As you know, it's really rewarding. And it had the added bonus that you didn't really have to speak that much directly with people, because I used to be very painfully shy. I was terrified of speaking with strangers, basically. You'd probably call it social phobia, I guess, is what I had looking back on it now. The thought of, I mean, there's no way we could do something like this. Absolutely no way. I wouldn't have been able to go into all the network meetings that we're in. Even going to back in the days when you used to go to real events, going to seminars or whatever. I used to get the leaflet about them. I think, oh, these will be cool things to learn, good things to learn. And then look at the agenda. Line 1, registration and coffee, and I could feel panic. I'm like, what? You mean I've actually got to speak with people? A number of times I would come up with an excuse not to go, just to get out of that. Eventually, career plateaus, because you reach a point where it's not what you know, but who you know that gets the next job. Nothing wrong with that. It's when you're up at the high sorts of levels, they want to know it's someone they can trust. They don't want to just bring in some random person that they've interviewed. But when you're not going to all of these things, you're not networking, you're not connecting with people, you don't make the connection. So career kind of plateaus. And that's where I was in IT. I then had one panic attack too many, decided to do something about it, which in my case, because I was too scared to go and see anyone about it. So in my case, I actually ended up learning NLP, hypnosis, and coaching. I went right the way up to train the trainer level, because, hey, if you're going to study something, why not study as much about it as you can? Studied all that just to sort myself out, which worked beautifully. Found out I seemed to have a bit of a talent for it, and I was really enjoying it, and using it to help friends with their problems and so on. I was thinking, you know what, it'd be nice to do this as a career, but I've got a high-paying IT job. I've got the outgoings to match, which meant I couldn't afford the pay cut. And then the boss called me into the office one day and basically said, because of the financial situation, we're having to make some redundancies. Here's a wheelbarrow full of cash, never come back. And I sort of thought, if ever I was looking for a sign, this is it. So I didn't even think about the obvious path of find another IT job. I just went, right, I'm setting up my own business. I'll become a coach now. And that was 13 years ago. And here I am. Helped several thousand people around the world since then, traveled around the whole world doing some of this stuff. And I'm now back up in the northeast of Scotland.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because, when you were talking then about, how you, made redundant from your, well-paid IT job and go and start a business. And that was 13 years ago.
13 years ago, yeah.
So kind of the same thing happened to me just 3 years ago. But rather than setting up a completely different business, I decided to stay in the same field.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
But, some of what you just said then about the social phobia, going to events and, tucking yourself in the corner and that sort of thing. I'm completely I'm completely with you on that. I mean, most IT people are generally introverts.
A lot are. There is the stereotype about the shy, introverted IT geek, and there's a reason it's a stereotype. Many of it. I say us because I'm still a geek at heart. Still very much into my IT. Many of us are like that. And I mean, even now I'm outgoing. I can walk into a room full of strangers and thoroughly enjoy connecting with everyone. And at the end of it, go, whew, right, that's that done. Let's go and have some quiet me time now and just chill and relax.
So when you decided it was time to, like you said, sort yourself out, what was, and you said, you had one panic attack too many sort of thing. How did all that kind of start? Was it just something that was something you were born, were you just painfully shy throughout your entire childhood and growing up, or was it something that happened partway through your life? Do you even know?
Yeah, that's great questions. And you almost said there, was that something you were born with? which is an interesting as interesting place as any to start, because so many with people, when we have these things, got fears, got phobias, got hang-ups, got whatever, so many of us think, oh, that's the way I was born with it. But the reality is none of us are born scared of anything. If you have a newborn or a very young infant, you'll know that they're scared of absolutely nothing. Their parents, meanwhile, are freaking out at everything because this young thing seems to be trying to do everything it can to kill itself. So you've got to make sure that no, but we're born with no fear at all. But all of our fears, our phobias, our hang-ups, whatever, are all things that we learn. And we learn them because we're doing the best we can with what we've got. Either we learn it through a direct experience, or we learn it because we observe someone else. For example, if you're a really young child, baby, toddler, and you see your parent freaks out every time they see a spider, fairly quickly you go, got it. We see a spider, we freak out. I can do that. Yes, I'm rocking this living thing. And we learn the phobia. Or we get taught it. For example, we'll often get taught, people like us never amount to much. No, we know your place. Or a very common one, which I'm betting everybody catching this episode will have had these 4 words told to them when they were young. Don't talk to strangers. We all get told that. And don't get me wrong, it's absolutely potentially life-saving. That advice will have saved lives. No 2 ways about it. But so often when we get told don't talk to strangers, it doesn't come across just as matter-of-factly as that. There's all that emotion behind it, because as parents, terrified of what could happen, what could happen. So it sort of more sometimes comes across as, don't you dare talk to a stranger, because if you talk to a stranger, they'll kill you to death, and Mummy and Daddy will be very upset, and it'll all be your fault because you spoke to a stranger. Oh, any wonder so many of us, myself included, grow up scared of speaking with strangers. Tony, when was
we're not supposed to tell our children that.
Well, you can.
no. As in
how
the whole.
tell
I'm,
yeah, no. I get
that reaction of don't ever talk to strangers. That was meant.
Yeah, I mean, you do raise a serious point. Well, do we not tell our kids that? No, absolutely. But just be aware of how you tell them it. And also, there's a key thing. Tony, when was the last time somebody said to you, hey, Tony, you know what? You're big enough, you're grown up, you know how to look after yourself. It's okay to talk to strangers. In fact, you should probably go out and talk to strangers. You'll enjoy it. We never get told that, really, do we?
I was going to say, you're the first one to say that. I mean,
yeah.
Old enough to even my parents still try and tell me how to do things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things to be careful of how we impress this upon. I mean, obviously, we want them to go, oh, I'm not talking to strangers. And we also then want to, as they're growing up, kind of instill that, you know what? You're a bit older now. It's okay. I mean, don't talk to random people. If that's a strange person comes up offering you sweets to get into their car, still run a mile. But these are ways in which you can and gradually get us to interact a bit more. So for me, it was a couple of different memories that came up when I was working through this. One was I remembered being dragged along to some party somewhere and sort of sitting in a corner and just really not wanting to take part in it and just getting more and more to and a few years later I suddenly remembered something from even before then. So I must have been, I don't know, maybe 3 years old, something like that. And I only got vague snippets of it, but I remember talking about it with my mum years ago, and she reminded me of this. We were at the bank somewhere for whatever reason, no idea why. But she was in the meeting talking with whoever, discussing whatever, and I wandered off, being a bored toddler. I wandered off, and she couldn't find me. I was panicked a bit, and eventually found me. I'd found the bank manager's office, and I just wandered in because the door was open. Wandered in. I was just having a good old chat with him, and they found me. Obviously, she'd been a bit panicked, oh my God, where's he gone? So must have picked up on that. She must have said something about, don't you wander off, don't wander off, don't talk with strangers, all this sort of stuff. And at some point, part of my mind has gone, oh, don't talk to strangers. It's very bad. It's terrifying. Look at the effect it had on mum. Oh my God, this must be a really scary thing. Right. Never talk to strangers. And that kind of seared in at the unconscious level when we're very young. And that's kind of the programming that we that stays with us as we grow older and we grow up.
Well, that's just you talking like that about, you know, wandering off, and it's just triggered something in my mind from when I was growing up. We were at a caravan park in southern Wales. I must have been 6 or 7. My youngest brother had he was 6 months old, and the one in the middle would have been 3 or 4. And we were sent to this kids club thing, you know, typical late 80s, early 90s type kids club where they haven't got a clue what they're doing. Actually, just the same as now. They haven't got a clue what they're doing. They don't really look after you. And we both kind of wandered off, went to use the facilities and things in this break, and then we couldn't find our way back to where we had to meet these people. And my brother, being a little tyke that he was, still is, wandered off, and I couldn't find him. So I had this pang of panic of what do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, somewhere didn't know, you know, on holiday somewhere I didn't know. I'm like, right, I knew the name of the caravan. It's still up here now. It was called Home and Away.
Oh right, nice.
But it was no Summer Bay. And it was about, and I remember we had to drive from the caravan to this little centre where this kids club was. So it was a fair distance. I ended up running it was best part of a mile to this caravan. And my mum came running out, looking at me, you know, and just the terror in her eyes of, you're on your own. Where's your brother? He was tucked up in this arcade game, just happily watching the demo. He'd been sat there for about 45 minutes and didn't know any of this was going on. And I think since then, I've always been quite conscious of, if I'm like responsible for somebody, I want to know where they are. And it's the same with I think it's the same with the kids now. It's just funny how those reactions, I suppose, just change the way your programming works, and how a simple reaction like, you know, that shock can just, you know, I guess it just triggers different neural pathways and kind of, you know, aligns you to that way of thinking going forward, doesn't it, I suppose?
Absolutely, yeah. Because our mind is attempting to make sense of everything that's out there, and we're doing the best with what we can. With hindsight, we can see it in a whole different way very often.
Yeah.
But when we're using hindsight, that's our conscious mind that's working through these things, whereas all of the programming, as it were, happens at the unconscious level. And once that thing is programmed in, no matter how much consciously we tell ourselves it's different, our unconscious goes, no, it's that. Look, that's how things are. That's our program. Computer says no. That's what we do. Which is why you can't sort of logic yourself out of a panic or a situation like that, because even though consciously you're saying, no, it's all right, unconsciously you've got all these routines running which are preparing you to fight or flee for your life.
Yeah, it's you know, the way the mind works is really, really interesting, and again, the way you've just analyzed, you know, done the analogy there of, you know, you kind of linked it into, I suppose, technology, because this is probably the best computer that anybody will ever have access to. You know, it's doing so many subroutines and things.
Yeah,
you know, without us even knowing about it.
Yeah, it's fascinating, the brain as a computer. It's both the best, most advanced computer on the planet, and it's also a particularly rubbish, inefficient computer. It uses far too much energy. It's really, really slow. But on the other hand, it can do lots of things simultaneously. And yeah, it's a fascinating thing, the brain. We talk about it as a computer, but it's very different from any kind of computers that we have at the moment,
Oh,
which is
absolutely.
why things like AI, which are coming on apace at the moment, but still have a very, very long way to go to match the results that the human brain gets.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
So obviously you've gone from IT into the hypnosis, the NLP, and everything. How
Yeah.
has technology helped you go from obviously where you were to where you are now, and how has that technology changed?
One of the biggest ways in which technology has helped has been things like Zoom, and before that, Skype. I mean, Zoom really came into their own with the COVID pandemic in 2020. They were a perfect example of a company being in the right place at the right time with the right product. They were just they were there. Everybody grabbed Zoom. I mean, I know other solutions are available from other companies. That said, Zoom just happened to be okay. It wasn't brilliant, and they did a lot of development work on it in the first couple of months. It went through some huge changes, so they were very responsive as well,
Yeah,
which is to their great credit. But they just happened to have something which did what we needed at the time, even though nobody could have forecast it or foreseen it. But I mean, can you imagine if the lockdown had happened in like the 1980s, where we didn't even have dial-up? If you had a modem to access a bulletin board, you were working at 300 baud.
yeah,
If you were lucky, it's like things would have been very, very different. But so with the pandemic, so many people going, "Oh, Zoom, yeah, I can use that." That really helped. Before Zoom, I'd been using Skype to work with people remotely, because with hypnosis and NLP, you don't need to be physically present. There's no actual physical interaction. And in some ways, it can actually work even better. There are other reasons why being physically present can work well, because you can observe the whole person and pick up on various nuances. But it can work really well remotely because, I mean, if we were having a session now, you're in your own house, you're where it's comfortable, you can relax more, you can feel safer. If we had never, excuse me, if we had never met before, you're not inviting a stranger into your house. Or if you'd come to my place, I mean, okay, we're at opposite ends of the country, so it just wouldn't happen anyway. But if I was maybe an hour's drive away, you'd have to find your way there, find somewhere to park, all those stress. And so again, you're not feeling particularly relaxed and restful and receptive. So uh, online stuff has really helped. It's enabled me to connect and work with people quite literally around the planet. The furthest away was when I was up here in northeast Scotland. I was working with a person who was in New Zealand. We worked out that the astronauts on the International Space Station were closer to me than the client was. But I mean, I touched on the pandemic there, and people switching on to Zoom. That itself was another massive leap forward. It wasn't so much the technology, but it was the acceptance of the technology, or even the awareness of it. Because before then, you talk to people, "Oh, can you do this stuff remotely?" "Yeah." "Oh, well, how do we do it?" You talk them through setting up Zoom and talk them through. Now, since March 2020, how do we do this? We'll do it over Zoom. Okay, send me the link. I'll be there. Bam. It's
yeah.
now just as matter of fact as send me your address. I'll be there. So it really has helped, because particularly living up in the northeast of Scotland as I do, it's a beautiful part of the country. I would say that, wouldn't I? But it is a beautiful part of the country. I've still families up here. I've still got school friends. School friends are up here because it's just a few miles from where I went to school. So it really, really does feel like home, because it is home. But
Mm.
it's also incredibly remote from pretty much everybody else. So again, the technology makes a massive difference. Networking. I mean, you and I, we're in a network meeting every Tuesday,
We
again, which
are.
we can do it through the power of the internet. So from that side of things, technology really helped a lot. Plus, um, be able to create podcasts. That's a great way of getting content out for people. All the online stuff with the internet is a great way for people to be able to browse, to look for information, to find what they're looking for, without feeling the pressure of speaking to someone and feeling, oh, if I ask them, they're just going to try and sell to me. So all of that makes it much easier, both for people like me and for potential clients. They can do their research in their own time, compare stuff, find far more information than they ever would have been able to before.
Yeah, it's. I must admit, it's funny because we've been, we've known each other for four and a half, maybe even 5 years now.
Something like that, yeah.
We've never met, as in
Nope.
physically.
Never
But
physically. Almost
I
did
think,
once, but it
well,
didn't
yeah.
pan out.
But I know that if I've got a query about something, I know that I can literally send you a message. We can have a Zoom or a phone call or whatever within a couple of minutes, and likewise, and
Absolutely.
that just shows, I suppose, the power of us as individuals, but the fact that the technology just enables us to do that.
It enables the connections. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
how do you see technology? Again, you touched on AI a minute ago. How do you see technology helping you with your mindset mastery stuff, your podcasts, and all that going forwards?
It's a really interesting field to speculate. I know very recently there's been a huge surge in people's interest in AI because of, are we allowed to mention brand names?
Yeah.
Yeah, because of things like ChatGPT, which suddenly people are going, oh, wow, this can create all sorts of stuff. The problem is, as great as the leaps in AI absolutely are, and I mean, there's no two ways about it. There's massive leaps in AI that we take for granted. I mean, things like on your phone when you take photos, the amount of AI processing these days on those photos to get the best image quality, the amount of processing so that it'll automatically add tags. You go, all right, there are people here. It looks as though it's at the beach. There's trees. It's sunny. Works all that out. Puts all those tags, all without you even thinking about it. So there are areas where AI is absolutely making life so much easier for us. That said, we sort of still take some bits of it and give it qualities it doesn't have. I mean, I've seen a lot of people going, "Oh, ChatGPT, it's great. I can create loads of articles and create lots of new stuff." It's as a search engine, as like a next generation advanced search engine, the kind that's been in various sci-fi works for a while. It is really, really good. So it's leap order of magnitude beyond the likes of Google and other search engines are available, where it does. I mean, even though those are advanced, far more advanced than the likes of Alta Vista and Ask Jeeves were 10, 20 years ago. ChatGPT is way, way, way beyond there because it gathers lots of information, processes it, and creates, or rather stitches it together for you. But it's not creating anything new. It's not learning in the way in which we would perceive learning. It's not able to create something new. It's basically, it's a really, really powerful mechanical Turk. It's great at copy and paste and reword and rewrite and stick together, but it's still not creating new stuff. And that is where there's still a huge limitation with AI in terms of creating new stuff. We've seen the various image ones around which will create pictures. Again, they're basically taking snippets from lots of different pieces of art and sort of extrapolating it. I mean, you see some of the people with like 8 fingers with 6 joints in each finger. For some reason, they just cannot get hands and fingers right. So where I'm going with this is, I know there's some people feel that the likes of AI will become much, much bigger in terms of coaching and so on. And absolutely, I can see that happening. I don't believe we're anywhere near as close as people think now, because there's so much creativity required in it. It's not just a case of person comes in with this issue, we'll do this, then this, then this, then this, and then out they go. I mean, I know of some coaches who do that, but you don't really get the results because you do the first couple of steps and you don't get the result you're expecting. You then do the third and fourth steps. Well, that's a bit pointless because you're now working with something different. But the AI isn't there to be able to go, oh, that didn't work as expected. What do we create instead? That said, I can see, not immediately, but maybe 5 years in the future, AI reaching the point where you can kind of have a bit of a chat with it, and to help you with something, like help you, give you that little boost of confidence, or just that support, or help you get some ideas of where to go. But I think it's still going to be a fair way off in the future before we have a fully functional AI therapist or coach, for want of a better term. But it's a fascinating thought. It'd be lovely to see when we do reach that point.
Yeah,
scary, but interesting.
It's interesting when you have a conversation with an AI chatbot.
Yes,
and you can instantly tell that it's not a human.
Mm-hmm.
And
none of them have passed the Turing test yet.
Yeah, and they're don't get me wrong, they're a lot better than they were even 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
But they've still got a hell of a long way to go.
They do.
And
that's not to say anything against them. It's just because all things will evolve and grow. It's just for caution for us to be realistic in that with our expectations in the shorter term.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to. Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, well, something I discovered a couple of days ago, which I thought was quite amusing. Apparently, lots of students are starting to use ChatGPT to create their essays. Somebody has already created a piece of software which identifies that an essay has been created with ChatGPT.
Yeah,
and they made that freely available to lecturers and teachers and so on. And I know Google are already have already said they're working on their own AI, which will work out that you've created a blog using ChatGPT or other platforms. Because let's not forget there are other such platforms around, and they'll identify that. And the implication is that if it starts becoming too many of these, they're going to start penalizing those. So you fill your blogs up with AI created content, your Google ranking is going to crash through the floor because they want new stuff, creative content, stuff that's different rather than regurgitating the same old stuff, no matter how much you polish it up and present it.
Yeah, end of the day, there's only so many times you can rewrite the same thing.
Yeah,
before it becomes detrimental to anyone, really.
Exactly.
But yeah, I was listening to the Killing It podcast. It's one that Carl Polachuk does, and they were talking about flying cars. They're apparently in Virginia. Somebody has bought this $800,000 flying car that can take off from a driveway, and it's it's crazy to think that we're in a world where that is even a remote possibility.
I remember growing up in the 70s and 80s, one of the things we all thought we were going to have by the year 2000 was the flying car.
Yeah. And then, with Back to the Future, and you had the hoverboard by 2015 and all of that. And it's like,
yeah.
And okay, you can buy what are called hoverboards, but they're not. They're just remote control skateboard, aren't they? It's like,
yeah.
So I mentioned just then, obviously, a podcast that I listen to, but you have a couple of podcasts of your own, don't you?
I do, yes.
So why don't you just tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. So I've got two because, hey, why not? It's hard enough making one podcast a week. Why not flog myself and make two? So there's one is the highly imaginatively titled The Keith Blakemore-Noble Radio Show, where half the episodes are me talking about some aspect, usually of mindset or something similar, which I hope people find interesting. And the other half of the episodes, so we alternate, 1 week is one week's the other. The other half of the episodes are me plus an interesting guest, where we have a chat about them, their life, what they've learned, all this sort of thing. And we just did the top 10 most listened episodes from 2022. So the episodes which got the most listens, they didn't have to be 2022 episodes, but it was the episodes which throughout 2022 got the most listens. And the second most listened one, not the second, sorry, the so I can't remember exactly where you are now, but in the top 10 is your episode, the episode that you and I recorded. It was one of the 10 most listened episodes throughout 2022.
And there was me thinking I was boring it.
Not at all. Not at all. It was a popular episode. And you're up against a fair bit of competition. I mean, there's about 80 podcasts in that series so far, and you were one of the 10 most listened last year.
Yeah. And our mutual friend Mr. Lawrence was up there as well, wasn't he?
He was the second most listened one, which took him by surprise. So there's that one, and then there's also 5-minute meditation, which, as its name suggests, they're 5 minutes long. Well, actually, 5 minutes 24 seconds by the time you have the intro and outro. 5-minute guided meditation suitable for anyone at any level. New meditation each week, just to give people a bit of a taster of meditation, just help them to maybe relax and take a little bit of time out.
Yeah, and I do listen to both. The meditation one probably a little bit more infrequently than the radio show, but both, the meditations I have done have been, they just really get me set up for the day.
Yeah.
So I think I do need to make that a bit more of a habit.
Yeah. And they are just 5 minutes, so it's not like you're spending a couple of hours. It's just take 5 minutes out, a little recharge, and away you go.
So from podcasts, let's go to something a little bit more traditional. I feel like we're jumping around a little bit here, but I've got so much. We could literally talk for hours.
We could, and we often do.
I'm just conscious that I don't want to take up all of your afternoon. So so the more traditional, you have got, is it 5 books already?
5 so far, yes.
So 5 so far, and I mentioned on the podcast in a couple of previous episodes that you were doing a crowdfunder to help with the next one in your series of books. Yes. I know that you exceeded your target, which is great news because it means the book is going live. Why don't you tell everybody about the book?
Why not? Why not indeed? Yes, it comes out on the 4th of March, or if you're listening to this after that, it came out on the 4th of March. The book is called Antimanipulation, and it's all about the tools, tricks, and techniques which the unscrupulous use to manipulate us into buying their stuff, whether that's products, services, courses, or beliefs, ideas, and ideologies, because it works on all fronts. So it's all about exposing all of the tools, tricks, and techniques they use so that we can be aware of what's going on. We can spot when they're attempting to manipulate us so that we can sort of take a metaphorical step back, just think a little bit more carefully so that if we do decide to buy, we know we're buying because we want to. We're coming from an informed place rather than we've been manipulated into buying it, falling for all the pressure and the manipulation and the tricks that they use and end up buying something that we perhaps didn't want.
I think most people have been there, haven't they? Where they bought something, then all of us, within a couple of days, buyer's remorse sets in. It's like
that's the one, yeah.
Or maybe I'm glad I bought it, but it's like I kind of have that every so often. I have a rather large tattoo on my lower forearm. It's got my son's name on it. Don't get me wrong, it looks nice. And every so often I look down on it and I'm like, I really regret getting that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I can't take it back.
No. There's an interesting thing, actually. You mentioned buyer's remorse. It doesn't always follow that if we have buyer's remorse, it's because we were manipulated.
No.
Although when we are manipulated, we very often do have buyer's remorse, often along the lines of, why on earth did I buy that? What was I thinking? I don't want or need this. Oh, what have I done? But often buyer's remorse can happen because try not to get too technical about it because I don't want to take much time, but we run programs, we run strategies for things that we do. A strategy is a series of steps that our mind runs, and they often run really, really quickly to give us an outcome. And when we decide to buy something, we have a strategy that tells us, oh, it's time that I bought a new whatever. Then when we actually buy the thing, we have a strategy that tells us this is the one to buy. We also have a fulfillment strategy, which applies not just to buying things, but to anything. The fulfillment strategy goes, yeah, I'm happy with that. I like that result. It could be buying something. It could be having a meal. It could be going on a date. It could be going on a holiday, whatever. We have fulfillment strategies. And what can happen is if your buying strategy operates in a different way from your fulfillment strategy, sometimes we can end up buying something and that fulfills our buying strategy, but then our fulfillment strategy comes on and goes, no, I'm not happy with that. So that can sometimes trigger us into buyer's remorse, where we buy something even though we haven't been manipulated in any way, shape, or form. It's we're complex creatures, basically. We are complex creatures.
We are indeed, and I love the look of the cover. Again, for anybody that's listening to this, go and check this episode out on YouTube, and you'll be able to see a sneak peek of the cover. It looks amazing. It looks like a Clements production to me.
Certainly is. Yep, Simon Clements. He's my go-to guy. He did the cover for my last book as well, the Master Beware. I love his work. I love the way I can basically say, Simon, I've got a rough idea. This is kind of what I'm thinking about. He says, right, I'll go and create a rough draft. Comes back with it. I take a look and go, Simon, that's the finished cover. What do you mean rough draft? You've got it. It's perfect. It's everything I wanted without even realizing what I wanted.
Yep, he'd done something similar for my dad. My dad is big cricketer. He still works, but not as much as he used to. And he started making his own cricket bats, and he wanted a nice design for it. I said, leave it with me, Simon. I kind of need this, and this. Is that okay? I'll come back to you with a rough draft. And I went, mate, if you ask me, that's it.
Yeah.
Sent it to my dad. My dad was happy as well. So it's just amazing how he can essentially encapsulate everything you want in that graphic or in that design, and you haven't got that toing and throwing like you have with like you see on The Apprentice and things like that. I cannot stand that TV show anymore. I used to watch it every series, but it's just I don't understand how people in business can be so ridiculously stupid.
Yeah. It used to be good when it was actually about what it claimed to be about, and that was about finding the next apprentice, basically. But now it's much more that they're all just on there to get their 5 minutes of fame and to get on the telly and to the producers they make sure they engineer it so there's maximum conflict, because conflict is what sells. It was like Big Brother. The very first series of Big Brother was actually pretty interesting because it was a new concept. It was like, hey, here's a bunch of strangers, put them in a room, let's see what happens, let's observe the dynamics. And it was interesting. But from series 2 onwards, people were going in there so they could get on telly, and they were all being eccentric and all being different, and the producers were creating as much conflict as they could and putting in people, deliberately picking people with conflicting personalities to create argument, because that's and it's like, no, this is just, it's bear baiting, basically. I mean, yeah, which is a shame, but
it's manipulation. That's what it is.
Well, basically, yeah. They're manipulating them to create a program, and they're also actually manipulating the viewers to come and watch, to see what happens next, see what fight, who's going to hit who, are they going to hit, are they going to go to bed together, are we going to catch a glimpse? It's like, oh, really? Have we not progressed beyond this? Clearly, we haven't.
So it comes out. So the launch date, did you say March the 4th?
March the 4th. It'll be going on pre-sale in February, probably mid to late February. You'll be able to get it from all the usual places. It's in paperback and ebook, so it'll be on Kindle, it'll be on Apple, it'll be on Barnes & Noble's Nook. There's also in paperback, there's Amazon, Waterstones, all these sorts of places, or you can get the book from my website as well.
Brilliant. And we'll pop a link to your website into the show notes so people can go and take a look. And I've had a bit of a sneak preview of some of the book, and it was eye-opening, and I'm very much looking forward to getting my hands on the finished article. So my last question. What's next for you? After
What's next for me?
After you've launched the book, what's next?
After I've launched the book, I think a nice quiet gin and tonic to celebrate. And then after that, I'm creating a thing called the Mindset Mastery Movement, which is, it's kind of like, it's online. It's a mixture of group coaching and personal one-to-one coaching. So there's coaching, there's accountability. Often when people come to a coach, they come because they got one particular thing they want to work through. I want to lose some weight, or I want to stop smoking, or I want to get over this fear of flying. So you come in, we do the session, bam, done, and away you go, which is absolutely great. But a coach isn't just for the individual thing. A coach, if you work with a coach longer term, you can map out a much, much greater set of changes throughout your life. They don't all have to be massive, but it's these little tweaks, little steps, little adjustments, which all build up to a big, big, big thing. So the idea behind it is because it combines elements of group coaching, online work, alongside one-to-one coaching, it's at a lower cost. So I can keep the cost down, which means it can be available for more people, which means they can work, we can work together longer term, and you still get that one-to-one element as well, because you can't beat personal one-to-one. I mean, if you've got a group of, say, 20 people and you're all working in a common direction, each person still has their own individual specific areas they want to work on. So that's what comes, that'll be coming out in March, although I am taking some people on into it at the moment, just as we do a kind of like a soft launch throughout February, just so we tweak everything and they get a little bit extra coaching.
Well, yeah, you're doing that user acceptance controlling and beta testing. See, the IT guy still in there, Keith. He's still in there.
You say that. I remember in the early days when I was a coach, I used to tell people that I've worked in IT for 20 years. So I've gone from reprogramming and upgrading computers to reprogramming and upgrading the human mind. And a lot of the skills that I developed in my IT background, I do apply to the whole coaching thing. And a lot of that is the diagnostics, is this doing what we think it? We've made this change, or we've done this, which we expect to get this change. What has actually happened? Let's see where we are, monitoring the progress all the way through, which I think is part of the reason why I've been able to help thousands of people around the world to all get the results that they were looking for. Because everything is bespoke, customized. There's no everybody goes through the same process. Everyone's different, and a part of that has come about from years in IT, where you can't make assumptions about what's going on with the machine.
No, you really, really can't. Keith, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people get hold of you if they want to find out more about either the book or your coaching or your movement? What's the best way for people to get in touch?
Best way to get in touch is if you go to the website, keithblakemore-noble.com, all one word, no spaces, no hyphens, keithblakemore-noble.com. You'll find out more there. Or if you prefer the socials or prefer looking around on search engines, I'm blessed with having a unique name. There's nobody else on the planet with this name. So if you just look up Keith Blakemore-Noble, whatever comes up, good or bad, it's me. And that's also the same handle I've got on pretty much all the socials.
Brilliant. Well, like I said, I'll put a link to the website and your LinkedIn as well into the show notes. Thank you again, like I said, so much. I can't wait, like I said, to get a finished copy of that book. I loved The Masks We Wear. That was a great book. And again, from the sneak preview I've had, this is up there as well. So good luck with the launch. And I think we'll end it there. And so if you've got anything else to say, go for it. I'll give you 30 seconds on the mic just to say anything else you want to say.
Oh, my word. The pressure. 30 seconds on the mic to say anything I want to say, completely unprepared. Oh, God, I don't know. Just remember that change is always possible. You can always change. And when you master your mindset, that's how you master your life.
Our tip of the episode. So before we get on to my tip of the episode, I just want to thank Keith again for coming onto the show. And if you want to find out more about Keith's new book, Antimanipulation, launching on the 4th of March, please go to his website, the details of which are in the show notes. Right, my tip this week is another really simple one, albeit a little bit random, but I think it's a good tip because a client reported an issue at the end of last week, and it ended up being that the device was just dirty. So please clean your devices. Cleaning your devices on a regular basis is important, and there are a few reasons why. Number one, dust and debris can accumulate on the surface of electronics and begin to obstruct fans and vents. This can cause overheating, loose connections, and reduce the lifespan of your devices. Number two, oils and dirt from our hands can accumulate on devices, and that can cause damage to screens and buttons over time. Number three, germs and bacteria can easily spread through shared devices like mice, keyboards, and touchscreens. So giving them a clean with a little bit of disinfectant on a fairly regular basis can prevent the spread of bacteria. And number four, regular cleaning can also improve the performance and the look of your electronic devices, making them more pleasant to use and to help them last longer. Overall, keeping your electronics clean and cleaning them regularly can help protect and potentially prolong your investment. This kit is expensive. It can also help to improve the performance and reduce the spread of bacteria. God, reduce the spread of bacteria. Sounds like a COVID advert, doesn't it? I digress. We have reached the end of this episode. I've been Tony, the IT Smart Guy. Thank you once again to Keith for his time and to you for watching or listening. I hope you found this episode insightful and look forward to speaking to you again in the next episode. Remember, if you have enjoyed the episode, or even if you haven't, please let us know by leaving a review. It's the only way I can get any better at doing this sort of thing. And as always, if you have loved the show, please give us a subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much. See you next time. Thanks for listening to the IT Smart Guy podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'd love for you to like and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice.